President Trump made an explosive new claim about Democrat VP contender Tim Walz at a rally over the weekend. Trump claimed that, as governor, Walz changed state law to go soft on...
And he signed a bill allowing to claim human rights protections under the state law.
Now, I immediately looked this up. That sounded so crazy. Not that I doubt Trump, but it sounded so crazy I had to look it up. And of course, the prominent fact-checking outlets said that claim is completely false. Right here, Tim Walz signed law protecting from discrimination. False. And there's a big red X there. However, when you actually read the article, not just the headline and the big false and the 10,000 Pinocchios, you actually read the articles, the reality seems to undermine the fact-check verdict. Even Snopes, that's the first one I looked at, Snopes admits that before Walz signed the Take Pride Act to amend Minnesota civil rights law, this is how the law read. Sexual orientation means having or being perceived as having an emotional, physical, or sexual attachment to another person without regard to the sex of that person, or having or being perceived as having an orientation for such attachment, or having or being perceived as having a self-image or identity not traditionally associated with one's biological maleness or femaleness. Here's the kicker. This is in the law before Walz. Sexual orientation does not include a physical or sexual attachment to children by an adult. Now, I'm just reading from Snopes here. After Walz amended the law, this is how it read. Sexual orientation means having or being perceived as having an emotional, physical, or sexual attachment to another person without regard to the sex of that person, or having or being perceived as having an orientation for such an attachment. Period. That's it. And end of the section. You notice anything missing? Walz, Tim Walz, Kamala's VP contender, specifically took out the line stating that sexual orientation does not include. The fact checkers are able to say that Trump's claim is false because they can say that it is illegal under different laws. But that doesn't explain why Tim Walz would intentionally remove a line excluding from protection. That's really weird. Add on to that Walz's declaration as governor that Minnesota should be a refuge and sanctuary for kids. Maybe they're arguing with their parents. Their parents don't think a boy can become a girl. Well, come here. Come to Minnesota, kids. We're a refuge for you. Add on to that Walz's obsession with putting tampons in fourth grade boys' bathrooms. Add on to that Walz's founding a club in 1999 when he was a high school teacher, specifically to talk to young kids. We're talking about 14-year-old kids about aberrant sexual behaviors. A club designed to encourage those behaviors. It's weird. I'm not making any accusations about Tim Walz. I'm not taking anything out of context either. The media, obviously, are trying to deny it, but it is incontrovertible that the Democrats' vice presidential candidate has a 25-year history of persistently pushing on kids. And all I'm saying is that it's really, really weird. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. There's a new trend. The trend is when you take a flight, you don't watch anything, you don't read anything, you don't sleep, you don't eat, you don't drink. You just sit and stare directly ahead. The only thing you can watch is the flight screen where you watch the plane go over. You could do that for 7 hours, 10 hours, 14 hours. We'll get into the political meaning of this strange trend first, though. Cherish the blend of old traditions and new beginnings with Mayflower cigars. When it comes to weddings, Mayflower offers the finest way to savor life's finest moments. Whether you're looking for the perfect groomsman, gift, a bachelor party, treat, a special present for the father of the bride or groom, just a way to relax after the ceremony, Mayflower Dawn and Mayflower Dusk deliver, as we found out when the lovely Markella from this very show sent me a bunch of pictures from her wedding. Picture this, a late-night reception indulgence with the glow of a Mayflower cigar, creating memories that linger as long as the rich aroma of our expertly crafted blends. Are you traveling for the event? You need the Mayflower Cigars Travel Humidor, which I would be holding up right now, except I took it with me to Wilmington, Delaware when I spoke about Dante at the ISI honors program. So it's still in my suitcase. But it just proves to you how effective it is. The Travel Humidor ensures that your cigars arrive just as perfect as the day you bought them. Safely transport your Mayflowers in style, no matter where the celebration takes you. Now, on the one hand, the Tim Walz is really disturbing and weird. You know, I guess that's the word that's come to typify this election campaign. On the other hand, it's totally to be expected. A video went viral. I think this is from Tenet Media over the weekend of some Harris Walz supporters. Listen to the kind of person who's really gung-ho about Harris.
Why are y'all voting for Kamala Harris?
I don't want to lose my rights. Like, I'm a trans man and I'm gay and I have been pregnant and I've had an abortion before and I don't want to lose that. I'm afraid of not being able to be myself anymore because from what I've heard, Trump's America doesn't want me to look like this. So that's why I'm here today and that's why I'm voting blue.
What about you?
I've also been pregnant and had an abortion before. I was a minor and it would have been dangerous for me to it would have been dangerous for me to carry a baby with personal reasons and everything. I also I'm very,
Alternative.
alternative, and I feel like if Trump were to win, I wouldn't be able to express myself through my looks and everything, and wouldn't be able to have the piercings or the dyed hair or the tattoos that I want. I would be able to be myself, and my dad's very pro-Trump, and I'm just very
Pro-Kamala.
pro-Kamala.
Okay, for those of you who are just listening, the girl on the right, the first girl to speak, is dressed up, I guess, kind of like a boy, sort of, like a goth kid in high school. And then the one on the left has a bunch of piercings and tattoos and is wearing a dog collar with spikes around her neck and a kind of a leather crop top thing. And then, of course, the first one says, I'm a trans man who is gay, who is pregnant, who had an abortion. And the other one says, who looks more like a girl, and acknowledges being a girl, says, I too was pregnant and had an abortion. I was knocked up as a minor. Okay. Yes, this is exactly what you expect a Harris Walz supporter to be. But my first reaction to a clip like this is, these are deeply traumatized people. Even you hear at the end the summation of all liberalism, which is, I hate my dad, or I have a problem with my dad, or I have deep disagreements with my dad, or a friend of mine once said some years ago that all of liberalism boils down to screw you, dad, and I think that's pretty much the most concise description of it I've ever heard. These are really traumatized people. So they're traumatized, obviously, because they've committed a horrible, horrible crime, which is that they killed their children. Both of those people killed their children. And no matter how much one shouts one's abortion, no matter how many pride parades one goes to, that people have a moral conscience and the natural laws inscribed on every human heart. So that eats away at people. I know a number of women who have had abortions, and 100% of them are traumatized as a result of it. Whether some admit it, some don't admit it, but it's just a fact. So on top of that, then the second girl to speak, was obviously doing a bunch of sex stuff as a kid. That's not good, and obviously wasn't supported by her family or by her boyfriend or whatever. However, she came to become pregnant. These are traumatized people. Okay, so what this shows you is actually that the feminists are right about one thing. When the feminists said in the 70s, the personal is the political, they're 100% correct. Personal sin becomes a political problem because man is the political animal. So even our most private sins, no matter how private we think they are, we do some drug in our own home. Well, maybe when you do that drug, maybe you get in a car and you get into an accident. Maybe when you do that drug, at the very least, you'd say you're not as productive a member of society. Maybe you do that drug and you end up dead, and then people have to deal with that. And this creates trauma throughout a family, throughout a whole community, puts strain on the healthcare system even. There's no such thing as purely personal sin. Because sin has temporal effects, always, all the time. And in this case, all the real political problem is that it all compounds on itself. So we live in a society that says abortion is really good. And then girls go out and sometimes they're convinced abortion really is good. And they feel desperate and they use that as an excuse and they have abortions. And then they're traumatized by this. So they can either admit that they've committed a murder or they can say, no, I didn't. And they can suppress all of their moral intuitions and say, no, we need more abortion. Actually, the only way we need to normalize this has to be good. And you get more abortion. The same thing with obviously all these sorts of the alternative styles and living. One can either acknowledge that one is doing something that is not conducive to human flourishing, or one has to double down on the aberrant behaviors. And when one doubles down, it becomes an even greater political problem. Of course, in order for those girls to vote for Donald Trump, they would have to admit that they've been led astray, that they've done something wrong, that they've probably done a number of things wrong, and that they have to change their behavior. And it's very difficult to change one's behavior. It's very difficult to change one's appetites and desires because we're creatures of habit. And in the language of modern science, you'd say we create these hardened mental pathways, and it's very difficult to break those things. It's sort of like addictions. And if you speak in the language of virtue, you know that the more you do something, the easier it is to do, and the harder it is to do the opposite. Becomes a political problem. This is why, for most of American history, we discouraged bad behaviors that were contrary to people's flourishing. We discouraged things like abortion. We discouraged families breaking up. We discouraged all sorts of things that are not going to be conducive to one living a good life. We discouraged mutilating one's body, and so on and so forth. Now we don't do that. Now that we've liberalized. And many of the conservatives have gone along with this. Oh yeah, who cares, man? Do whatever you want. We're all for freedom. As we have liberalized things on drugs, on the meaning of family, on divorce, on all the rest of it. As we've liberalized that, we cultivate more and more of these behaviors, and it's harder and harder to break. It's going to be you might be able to persuade your center-left uncle who's a fairly reasonable guy who wants his stock portfolio to do better. You might be able to convince him to vote for Trump. It's going to be a lot harder to convince those girls to vote for Trump. You've got to unwind a lot of false beliefs and bad behaviors. So it would probably be better politically if we could nip that sort of thing in the bud early on. Of course, this is why the left has taken over education, is because if they can cultivate those kinds of desires and behaviors and false ideas early, it becomes much harder for the conservatives to break them. We have to talk about stuff like that. That's why we got to talk about Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Knowles. There is one cell phone company, that gives you free premium access to the media that you actually care about. That's Pure Talk. When you switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk on a qualifying plan, you'll get a free 1-year insider subscription to DailyWire Plus. That is right. Take advantage of unlimited talk, unlimited text, 15 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot on America's most dependable 5G network for just $35 a month. Unbelievable in itself. And you will get 1 year free of DailyWire Plus. The DailyWire Plus Insider Plan gets you access to our entire library of movies, series, and documentaries, including Lady Ballers, What is a Woman, Mr. Bircham, Run, Hide, Fight, and more. Plus, you'll get all our daily shows uncensored and ad-free. The only way you get this special offer is by going to puretalk.com/Knowles, Knowles. I've been telling you to stop overpaying for your cell phone plan for a long time. If you haven't made the switch over to Pure Talk yet, now is the time. Go to puretalk.com/Knowles, Knowles. Switch to a qualifying plan. Get a 1-year free deal, DailyWire Plus Insider. puretalk.com/Knowles. Kamala would change the political order if she became president. The libs have already done a good job. How else does Kamala want to change the political order? She wants to pass the Freedom to Vote Act. What is the Freedom to Vote Act? Kamala doesn't really want to tell you.
So we who believe in the sacred freedom to vote will finally pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the Freedom to Vote Act.
Okay. We're going to pass the John Lewis Act. John Lewis was this awful Democrat congressman, but you're not allowed to criticize him because he knew Martin Luther King once or something. So he's totally off limits, but he was awful, far left, just terrible member of Congress. And then the Freedom to Vote Act, even more important than the John Lewis Act. The Freedom to Vote Act would raise a question for me, which is, who's not free to vote? But Yeah, in principle, freedom to vote. Doesn't that sound great? But who's not free to vote? There are people in America who are not free to vote. Right now, I'm not even throughout the country, just in most places, right now, illegal aliens are not free to vote. Foreigners who are not illegal aliens, they just happen to be here, they're not free to vote. Criminals are not free to vote in most places. Felons are not free to vote in some places. Democrats are trying to enfranchise felons. Well, the Freedom to Vote Act would, among other things, enact nationwide no-excuse mail-in voting. So the sort of thing that is illegal, according to the state constitution of Pennsylvania, this would say, no, you are going to get unsolicited, ubiquitous mail-in ballots. The legislation would ensure that registrants could use drop boxes to turn in the mail-in ballots, so much less oversight over the ballot system. The law would automatically register voters unless they opt out. Right now, if you want to vote, you have to say, it's not very hard, but you have to say, I want to vote. And so this means that people have to have even a modicum of motivation, even a modicum of knowledge, even a modicum of participation in our political process in order to vote. This law would say, nope, you might not even know what your name is, but we're going to register you to vote. And don't worry, we'll take care of filling out that ballot for you. Don't worry yourself about it. We just want to make sure you have the right to vote. But you can outsource that. Don't worry. States that already have automatic voter registration usually do it through the DMV. This is called motor voter laws. And it ends up, you'll be unsurprised, that when you have automatic voter registration, a lot of people who are not eligible to vote, should not be eligible to vote, are put on the voter rolls, including illegal aliens. So that's what this is about. Everyone who should vote, and then some, are currently able to vote. The Freedom to Vote Act exists to make sure that a greater number of illegal aliens, other non-citizens, criminals, people who have no interest in the political process, who are much more easily manipulable by the Democrats, all those people are enfranchised. It's just a way to steal elections. And when I say Kamala Harris wants to vote, I know Snopes is going to come out. There's going to be a big fact check. False. Washington Post fact checkers, 10 million Pinocchios. How dare Michael suggest Kamala wants illegal aliens to vote? She told us herself.
We know our immigration system is broken, and we know what it takes to fix it. Comprehensive reform that includes, yes, strong border security and an earned pathway to citizenship.
There it is. She just told us that. If you don't understand how she told us she wants illegal aliens to vote, she just said, I'm going to make sure that illegal aliens can vote by making sure they're no longer illegal aliens. I'm going to give them a mass amnesty. I'm going to make them citizens. And then, hey, look, we don't need to worry about debating illegal alien voting because I just turned those illegal aliens with a wave of a wand into citizens. And I did it because statistically, they're much more likely to vote for me and my fellow Democrats than they are to vote for Republicans. And I know there's a lot of wish casting by Republicans who say, no, we could win those voters. Yeah, probably not, though, actually. Yes, there's been movement among Hispanic voters. There was a survey that came out a couple of months ago now, showed that and this is back when Biden was in the race, probably the numbers have gotten a little worse for Republicans since then. There was a 20-point swing from the Democrats to Donald Trump. And even with a 20 percentage point swing in the Hispanic vote, Democrats were still winning the Hispanic vote, okay? There are certain Hispanic groups that tend to vote Republican more frequently. Cubans would be one example of this, which is why Barack Obama, as he's trying to flood the country with largely Hispanic, he actually cut off migration from Cuba. This is the Cubans who swim over on a wooden door across shark-infested waters. Previously, they could put one foot on dry land and they were granted some asylum in America. No, Obama got rid of that one because those Cubans, they vote to a Republican. So you forget about the Cubans. The Colombians trend a little bit Republican too. I don't know about those Colombians, but the illegal aliens from the Hispanic countries that are more likely to vote for Democrats, those are the ones that Democrats want to flood the country with and then give them a pathway to citizenship so that they can vote for Democrats. Reagan famously said the Hispanics are conservative. They just don't know it yet. Well, we've been waiting for 45 years. It hasn't quite happened. So it doesn't mean that at the micro level, Hispanics can't move conservative. I know many extremely conservative Hispanics, but at the macro level, there's a reason Democrats are pushing for this mass amnesty. That's what they want. They want a permanent electoral majority. That is what Kamala is running on explicitly. If you like what's going on at the border right now, you like the criminal cartels controlling the border, you like millions and millions of foreigners coming over and completely reshaping your country, and by the way, bringing a lot of crime and poison with them, poison that has, at this point, statistically likely killed someone you know, or perhaps even a member of your family or a close friend. That's how widespread the fentanyl crisis is. If you like that, vote for Kamala Harris, because she is promising you she's going to give you a lot more of that. I think it would be very irresponsible to vote for Kamala Harris, and I think you ought to check out Responsible Man. Go to responsibleman.com. Our nation needs strong, responsible, handsome, swarthy men now more than ever. That is why Responsible Man created the Emerson multivitamin for men of honor who take their duties seriously. With 33 key ingredients, this American-made powerhouse supports your immune system, sharpens your mind, and keeps your heart and muscles strong. It's the daily discipline that separates the men from the boys. Right now, you can get your first order of Emerson multivitamins for just $27.99. That is over 30% off. Go to responsibleman.com. Fuel your commitment to God, family, and country. Responsibleman.com. Head on over there right now. Do not let one moment go by. Go and treat your body well. I was just reading a great book by Antonin Gilbert Sertillange called The Intellectual Life. And Father Sertillange, a good Dominican, pointed out that if you want to have a good intellectual life, you need to make sure that you take care of your body. Am I laying it on thick enough for you? Go to responsibleman.com. Be the man America needs. There's a really weird new trend. Speaking of foreign travel, there's a really weird new trend. It's called raw dogging flights. Raw dogging flights. Here's BBC's reporting on it. I'd already heard about it, though. No films, no music, no sleep. Is raw dogging long flights heroic or foolish? Last week, Damian Bailey posted on Instagram that he had just achieved his personal best, a 13-and-a-half-hour flight between Shanghai and Dallas without any in-flight entertainment, films, books, or music. It's quite tough, honestly, the 34-year-old from Miami, Florida, tells BBC. But he keeps doing it. There's some more. You can just see this, like this young guy. A lot of this is like young, fit guys. Just raw dogged a 7-hour flight. No phone, no sleep, no water, no food, only map. #easy. I actually heard a story about a presidential candidate, a Republican in 2024, doing this very thing. I heard that someone said I was on a flight with this person, and the whole time he just stared straight ahead. So he was an early adopter. Is this good or bad? I mean, in itself, who cares? Who cares what these like social media influencers are doing on long flights? But what does it imply? What's the political meaning of it? Is it a good is it the politics is going in a good direction or a bad direction? What does it mean? It seems to me that if you are actively doing nothing, if you were just sitting on this flight trying to eradicate any thought from your mind, trying to fade yourself into oblivion, trying to do some kind of weird Buddhist meditation where the self dissolves or something, then that's probably bad and dumb and stupid and completely pointless. However, if you're raw dogging the flight and you are praying, let's say you're using, you get 12 hours to pray, like some, monk somewhere. Okay, well, that could be good. If you're using that time to think, maybe you're just organizing your thoughts. You've got some book you want to write, and you're just using this time to really explore some topic. You've digested a lot of information before the flight, and you're just trying to work through your thoughts. I think that can be good. The difference is, what is the raw dogging the flight for? There's a trend that's become popular even before raw dogging flights called mindfulness meditation. You've probably heard of it. Every bougie lib in every suburb in America is really into this thing. It's an outgrowth of the fashionable yoga that white bougie people do before they go to brunch on Sundays. And mindfulness meditation in itself is pretty dumb. because it's a derivative, like so much New Age religion. It's a derivative of Eastern religions, and Eastern religions tend to be dharmic and tend to be at least non-theistic, and tend to be not about the fulfillment of the self, but the abnegation of the self, the total erasure of the self, or the identification of the self with mere universality or something. I'm oversimplifying a little bit, but but the bougie white people who do this are certainly oversimplifying it too. So I think I can get away with it. Mindfulness meditation could be good if it's for something. Mindfulness meditation is when you just focus on the present, and you're very aware of your surroundings, and you're in a stillness and a quietness, and there's a kind of peace, and you're paying attention to the smell of the lady's perfume 3 seats down in the airplane, or you're paying attention to the vibrant colors of the flower on the tree or something. But all of this is judged not on the thing itself, but what it's for. We go back to good old Uncle Aristotle. You judge a thing, you know a thing actually, by what the thing is for. So I think a lot of these young fitness influencer guys are raw dogging flights in order to prove how just tough and stoic they are. But stoicism, while there's much to recommend it, is ultimately kind of fruitless and pointless, and it's just a pagan philosophy. But if it's for praying, if it's for focusing on God, if it's for something that will be edifying and sanctifying, I think it's pretty good. And I'm all for raw dogging flights, though I myself will opt for a book and a scotch. Speaking of globalism, traveling all over the world, great news, great news. One of the best political news stories in years, and it's flying totally under the radar. It's once again thanks to Elon Musk. I might take a little assist on it too. You'll see why in a second. GARM, the Global Alliance for Responsible Media, is being shut down. What is the Global Alliance for Responsible Media? It is an initiative from the World Federation of Advertisers. And you want to know what it really is? GARM is a cartel that wields the power of international corporations to shut up conservatives, to censor conservative speech, to bully social media platforms into deplatforming conservatives. That's what it is. It's a project associated with all sorts of weirdos at the World Economic Forum and any globalist entity you can think of. It's them. And it was a way for them to wield the power of the most influential corporations on earth to censor conservatives in politics. And Elon Musk almost single-handedly shut it down. The reason I take a little bit of an assist here is you may recall, I hate to say I told you so, I sort of broke this story a year ago, more than a year ago now. And I said, hey, stay tuned. The House Judiciary Committee is doing some good work on this. Jim Jordan's really digging into this a little bit. But this is a cartel, and they're trying to bully conservatives, especially Elon Musk, who had bought Twitter and was facing huge organized boycotts for allowing conservatives to speak on there. Then the House Judiciary Committee holds hearings about this. DailyWire has been personally affected by this kind of thing. Ben, our founding editor and one of the owners of the company, showed up. He actually testified before the House Judiciary Committee on what GARM means for public speech. Elon threatens to sue them on the antitrust grounds, and GARM says, okay, we're shutting down. And I love, this is how they talk about it. GARM is a small, not-for-profit initiative, and recent allegations that unfortunately misconstrue its purpose and activities have caused a distraction and significantly drained its resources and finances. The World Federation of Advertisers, therefore, is making the difficult decision to discontinue GARM activities. Okay, hold on. I just want to point out. So, no, this GARM thing, it's just this tiny, it's a small, not-for-profit initiative by the World Federation of Advertisers. When things are world federations, they tend not to be small. They tend not to be trivial because they involve the whole world. And it's a World Federation of Advertisers, that is to say, the most powerful companies on earth that provide the lifeblood of media, that provide the lifeblood even of big tech platforms. So you had some of the most powerful people on earth going in saying, we're going to choke off your companies' tech platforms. We're going to choke off your media organizations if you dare to contradict the liberals. And then the minute that the one conservative zillionaire that we have on our side, that's not fair. There are a few others. Peter Thiel's kind of involved. There are a number of others. But compared to the libs billionaires, we got nothing. And the one guy who puts his money where his mouth is and goes and buys a big tech platform and he threatens to sue them, these guys fold like a cheap suit. Love it. Love that. And another reason I love it, not just because I get to say I told you so, not just because it's a big political win for conservatives. This is also another win for the law is a tutor crowd over the politics is downstream of culture crowd. Now, both are true, obviously. I don't even think you can really separate politics from culture. But there's this libertarian slogan that has been so abused in recent years, politics is downstream of culture. And when I say it's abused, I mean it's abused to give Republican politicians an excuse not to do their jobs and wield the law and wield the government for the betterment of society. And then there's the more classically conservative side of things, which I find myself on, which says actually the law is a tutor and it's good for politicians to do their jobs and to wield the law in a just way. To quote Dante, who's on my mind because I gave a lecture about him at the ISI Honors Program on Friday, you can fit the polity with reins, the reins of the law, but who cares if you got the bridle if the saddle's empty? You need politicians to actually wield the law in a just way. Well, here Elon goes in and says, you got some law? Okay, I'm going to wield the law. Jim Jordan comes in, he says, I'm in office, I'm going to wield the law. I'm at least going to hold some hearings, air this stuff out. And guess what? We win. We win. When conservatives are not afraid to use the government for good purposes and just purposes within the proper bounds of the law, we win. When we ignore the law, when we ignore the government, when we have an allergy to political action, we lose. Good stuff. Now, speaking of overseas adventures, the scandal surrounding Tim Walz. I guess there are multiple scandals surrounding Tim Walz, but the stolen valor scandal surrounding Tim Walz is getting worse and worse. Tim Walz misrepresented or allowed to be misrepresented his military record. He personally misrepresented it when he said he carried weapons in war. He stole valor is basically what he did. He also got, after a long period of time in the National Guard, he got out just before he was to deploy to a war zone, and he's catching a lot of flack for this. So forget about what the conservatives are saying. Here's what the liberals are saying about this. This is CNN News Central with Brianna Keilar.
Informed observers connected to politics or the military, myself included, have noted that the Trump campaign is swift-boating Tim Walz. Attacks on J.D. Vance's service are also offensive. J.D. Vance served honorably in Iraq, a combat zone where anything can happen and frequently does. As he said in his book, he was, quote, lucky to escape any real fighting. That doesn't make his service less than. Lucky, he says. And luck is often what makes the difference in a combat zone or even a training mission. That today is not your day. In a country where so few shoulder the burden, military service should not be a liability. It should be an asset. And despite our recent years as a country at war, many service members haven't seen combat. That doesn't make them or their service less admirable or less necessary, nor does retiring from the National Guard after 24 years. These kinds of attacks from the left or the right diminish the service of so many others who have served honorably.
Oh, yeah, is that right, CNN? Now, listen, there have been attacks on Tim Walz's service. And I just want to say, I'm CNN, I just want to say, no, people really shouldn't be attacking J.D. Vance's service. He served honorably in Iraq. Right, he did. Tim Walz didn't. That's the issue. And actually, the issue isn't even Tim Walz's service. So, military service shouldn't be a liability. It should be an asset. Yeah, it should. It should. And no one's saying that Tim Walz's military service, even if he didn't go to Iraq or Afghanistan, no one's saying that is a liability. The liability is that Tim Walz lied about it. Okay? There is no form of military service that is disreputable. It's all honorable and admirable. Lying about it is what is disreputable. And J.D. Vance has never lied about his military service, and Tim Walz has consistently lied about his military service for years. And you got caught, Tim Walz, and you got caught, Democrats, shilling for it, and now you're trying to wave the white flag, or you're even being more dishonest about it. You're trying to conflate Walz's service and J.D. Vance's service. No, sorry, Buster, we got you dead to rights. This guy stole valor, he lied, he did it consistently, we got the receipts because the internet's forever, and now you're trying to make it all seem very vague and ambiguous and wish it away. It ain't going away. That's an extraordinarily offensive, disreputable thing. You don't need to ask me about it. You can talk to people who served with him. You can talk to his superior. And we've seen all of this because, unfortunately for the Democrats, it's all on tape. Speaking of things being on tape, remember the incredible film, What is a Woman? Well, Matt Walsh got the same group of guys back together to ask America's next burning question, am I racist? And that's coming to theaters this September. Matt went deep undercover into the cesspool of DEI insanity, rubbing elbows with professional race hustlers and diversity con artists. Pre-sale tickets go on sale this Thursday, August 15th. With your help, we're going to stick it to the woke mob, one ticket at a time. Get all the details. Watch the official trailer at amiracist.com. Kelly Hill, 8335 says on Friday, Walz says, don't let the government into your doctor's office. What does he think Medicare for all will do? Yeah, I know. That's why just mind your own business. Why is the doctor, why do you want the government in your doctor's office is a little weak coming from a man who speaks positively of socialism. It's from a campaign ticket that supports Medicare for all. What? These Republicans want to put the government in your doctor's office. You want to give the doctor's office to the government, guys. That's your campaign platform, actually. Little bit weak. But the Democrats are trying to put out the brush fire of Tim Walz's stolen valor, and it's not going well. CNN's doing their best, but it's not going well. CNN had Walz's military superior on to what they hoped, I think, put all of this to rest, and actually the opposite happened.
Because that is the focus that so many people are wondering about, whether he has done something wrong in service or done something personally to offend you.
He did something wrong in service. As I stated before, he knew the policies and procedures and how we go to leadership and address issues or discuss issues and concerns out there. Again, backing up, he had told me, no, I'm going forward. We're going to go with the battalion and go from there. So I'm under the believing, he told me he was going forward. I'm underneath that believing that he's going forward. He went around me, which he should have addressed it with me so he could help do some things out there.
Sergeant Major, this was really... Excuse me, I don't want to cut you off, sir.
Oh, no, I don't want to cut you off.
Please, Sergeant
Why
Major.
is this guy still talking?
Out there that people say, well, he hadn't been notified yet. Yes, he had been notified. Now, there's another step out there. There's what's called stop loss. 90 days prior to the actual deployment, we received our orders. And at that time is what's called stop loss, where if you're in a position, you're going forward irregardless, unless there's some really major or process that gets you out from not going on the deployment.
Bye. I don't want to hear this anymore.
So there's that window of opportunity in there. People say we never knew he was going forward. Yeah, he knew he was going forward. Here's another thing about...
Well, Sergeant Major, I do want to hear what you have to say, Sergeant Major. I know I want to be sensitive of your time, and your audio is beginning to break up just a little bit.
Now?
But I do want to thank you, because I think you've clarified a lot for people and given more information. The question now is how the voters will evaluate it. Sergeant Major Doug Julian, thank you so much.
Sergeant Major, thank you. No, I really want to hear the rest. Cut his mic! Cut his mic off! No, I really value and I want to hear more. Why is he still on air? Come on. Audio's breaking up. Come on, get out of here. She opens up. What an amazing loaded question. So did he do anything wrong in service, or did he just personally offend you? No, he actually did something wrong in service, and I'm just going to explain to you exactly how what he did was wrong. And well, but he probably wasn't notified that he was, you all keep saying he wasn't notified that he was going to go to Iraq or overseas. I forget, it was Iraq and Afghanistan, but actually, no, he was notified, and that's when he decided to get out. So, that's a lie too. And he did go around his superiors, and it's really disreputable, actually. Okay, well, bye. Don't want to hear this anymore. Yikes. Worse still, Washington Journal. This is actually a show I was supposed to go on this past weekend, but I was traveling, wasn't able to go on. Very, very popular, well-established C-SPAN show. Here is an old clip of Tim Walz being introduced as someone who served in Afghanistan, and he doesn't correct the record.
Congressman Tim Walz, also a member of the Armed Services Committee and Veterans Affairs, Democrat of Minnesota, highest-ranking enlisted soldier ever to serve in Congress, enlisted in the Army National Guard at 17 and retired 24 years later as Command Sergeant Major, and served with his battalion at Operating Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. And I read that because I want
there
to
it is.
preface our discussion with your military careers.
That's a lie. That's him lying about his military service. That's about him lying about being in a war zone. Here he is, Tim Walz, served in Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan, and you see him, he nods his head, yes. And he says something with his mouth. It looks like yes, but whatever he says, he nods his head, yes. And he doesn't correct the record. He lied. He lied about his military service in a really, really disreputable way. It's even more than a lie by omission. The other day, I was interviewing somebody, and I mentioned that as a boy, I liked baseball. And this person said, well, Michael, listen, you're a baseball player as a kid. And I felt the need to correct the record. I said, no. I played baseball, in Little League or something when I was really young, and I was really bad at it. I want to be clear. I was a really bad baseball player. I don't even want to steal the valor of playing, varsity high school baseball, okay? Because I don't want to paint a false picture here. I was really bad at baseball. You don't want to pretend to be something you're not. It's wrong in itself, and also you look foolish, and it's humiliating in the long run when you get caught. Tim Walz here is lying about a lot more than playing high school baseball. Okay, this guy's, I served in Afghanistan in Operation Enduring Freedom. This issue is not going away, and the Democrats are trying to smile through the tears, and they say, no, this is a bad issue. Republicans shouldn't talk about this. Republicans should talk about this. This is really bad stuff. The way you know it's a vulnerability is that they can't shut up about it. Kamala Harris facing the same issue with these old clips. There's an old clip that just jumped up of her. Kamala was the most liberal senator. She was to the left of Bernie Sanders when she was in the U.S. Senate. She tried to talk her way out of it back in 2020. Back then, when the journalists didn't really care about Kamala, they actually told the truth.
You're very different in the policies that you've supported in the past. You're considered the most liberal United States senator.
Somebody said that, and it actually was Mike Pence on the debate stage. But
yeah, well, actually, the nonpartisan GovTrack has rated you as the most liberal senator. You supported the Green New Deal. You supported Medicare for all.
If you're listening and you're not watching, I'm sorry, you're missing one of the greatest Kamala clips. You're the most liberal senator. I think, I think Mike Pence. Mike Pence said that. No, actually, it was GovTrack, which is nonpartisan, maybe perhaps could lean a little left. And you see Kamala she doesn't have a word to say about it. She just, And you've supported Medicare for all, and It's a lot easier for the media to lie about politicians' records before the internet. Now they can still do it substantially because they'll just cover it up, and they still control most of the platforms, but it's pretty good. There's one story too I have to get to. The Olympics just ended, and I don't know if you saw this story a few days ago. There was a gal who won. She won the bronze medal. This Romanian gal, and her name's Sabrina Voinea. And so her score was up there, and she won the bronze, and she did a good job in gymnastics. And then they just changed her score. She's already so excited that she won. They changed her score, and they gave it to, and this is important for the context, she's an extremely white girl, and they gave it to a black girl, Childs. And Jordan Childs. So Jordan Childs, black, ends up keeping her same score. Sabrina Voinea loses 1/10 of a point or something like that for allegedly stepping out. She placed her foot in the wrong place during her set, and so now she loses the bronze, and she runs away crying, head in hands. It's obviously so awful and humiliating. She just made her dreams come true, and now she's got to run away. And then when you look at the tape, you realize she never stepped out. Her foot was exactly where it was supposed to be the whole time. You can play the tape.
Pass.
Never once.
Heel doesn't touch the mat.
The heel doesn't touch. You can see it. Zoom in right there. It's not hard. They got cameras all over the Olympics. I'm not saying it didn't come close, but it was fine. They took that point away for no reason whatsoever. So now there's an update on the story, which is that the Olympics have gone back and they reviewed it, and they're actually going to reverse their decision, and they're going to, weirdly enough, they're going to give it to a different Romanian girl, the bronze, but not this one. But all of that is kind of beside the point. This girl had trained her whole life for that moment to be there on that podium, and they took it away from her. And this was promoted because now you get the all-black podium. And that's supposed to be historic. Finally, black people are succeeding in athletics. We've never seen anything like that before. But it's supposed to be historic because of the modern racial ideologies that the libs push. And so, okay, who cares if you reverse the decision later, or you give it to this girl, you give it to some other Romanian girl? That's not the point. The reason that this sort of unfair thing was promoted in the first place is in service of this ideology. So now we have affirmative action, not only in our schools, not only in places of employment, we have affirmative action in the Olympics too. I have never been more vindicated. I said this at the awful satanic opening ceremonies. I said there was another dumb closing ceremony. But I have never been more vindicated in not liking the Olympics. It's a lib thing. I'm not talking about the ancient Olympics. That was a pagan thing. Then it fell into a disuse for like 1400 years. No one did the Olympics. Then a bunch of modern libs resuscitated it and made the modern Olympics. And it's always been kind of lib, weird, kumbaya. And I'm just feeling vindicated. It's Music Monday, baby. The rest of the show is continuing now. You don't want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles. NWLES. Check out for 2 months free on all annual plans.
Republicans are Nazis. You cannot separate yourselves from the bad white people.
Growing up, I never thought much about race. It never really seemed to matter that much, at least not to me. Am I racist?
I would really appreciate it if you left.
I'm trying to learn. I'm on this journey. If I'm going to sort this out, I need to go deeper undercover.
They gonna say I'm racist.
Joining us now is Matt, certified DEI expert.
Here's my certification. And what you're doing is you're stretching out of your whiteness. This is more for you and less for you. Is America inherently racist?
The word inherent is challenging there.
I want to rename the George Washington Monument to the George Floyd Monument.
America is racist to its bones.
So inherently.
Yeah, this country is a piece of shit.
White
Folks,
white
trash, white supremacy, white woman, white boy.
Is there a black person around here? What's a black person right here? Does he not exist? Hi, Robin.
Hi, what's your name?
I'm Matt.
I just had to ask who you are because you have to be careful.
Never be too careful.
They gonna say you racist.
In theaters September 13th, rated PG-13.